The Home Mortgage Law Show is a paid program and is intended as a resource guide for education, information, and entertainment purposes and is not intended to provide specific legal advice. The information that you hear should not be used as a substitute for competent legal advice from a professional attorney. Hiring of an attorney is an important decision which should not be based on advertising or the information that you hear today.
You're listening to the Home Mortgage Law Show, brought to you by the law offices of Morris DuPont. Attorneys Will Morris, Shay DuPont, and George Fajardo, Director of Loss Mitigation. We're with you every Saturday from 2 until 4 on our flagship station, News Radio 610 WIOD and 970 WFLA. And you're listening to our Rocky segment.
Yes, and today with us we have BJ. He's been a client of the firm since March of 2012. And before the break, BJ, you were telling us about your experience with Bank of America before hiring Morris DuPont. What exactly was it that you were trying to work out with them during that time frame?
Just a simple loan modification, George. It was evident, I beg your pardon, it appeared from the research that I did on my own that I would qualify for some sort of loan modification. Sent them all the appropriate paperwork, was in contact with the folks on a constant basis. But, you know, in hindsight, it was pointless. It wasn't going anywhere. So
now, when you came to us and you had the initial consultation, take us through that. What exactly was your perception once you actually decided to take that step and contact the firm?
Well, I'm glad you asked, and this was the only bad experience, or not a bad experience. If I had to do one thing over, Shay, I go on your website and I look at all these beautiful people on your website, and I go meet JC.
What?
JC did a wonderful job. Don't get me wrong. Why couldn't you have sent one of those beautiful young professional females?
Ooh.
Or go yourself, Shay.
I'm so sorry you were disappointed in JC.
No, actually, when I got up, almost with tears in my eyes, I gave Big JC a hug, and it was just like, what a relief. Because as my research on the web indicated, we would qualify, and it was just a matter of engaging you folks, which I didn't do right off the bat. I met with JC in January of 2012. And I just said, well, I'll just wait it out a little bit more until the hammer really falls, and then I finally just decided to, engage you folks. I think, as George said, in March of 2012.
Now, you had already had a foreclosure action filed against you back in March of 2010, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
So you'd been fighting a foreclosure action with counsel?
No.
Just winging it on your own?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And when you met with JC, he actually sat down and crunched some numbers with you, calculated monthly gross income, what your 31% figure would be, and told you that he thought you would qualify for a loan modification, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And, that's what's the frustrating part when I listen to this show. When I hear these people call in, and it's like I want to jump through the phone and say, guys, get in your car, drive, go meet them. It's no obligation. It doesn't cost anything, and it'll take the weight of the world off your shoulders.
And I hear that all the time when I do consultations. I actually finish a consultation and someone will say, oh, my God, I learned more information in this hour than I have learned through the last 3 years. And they've met with, people at maybe a Chase Home Retention Center. They've actually gone and met with other attorneys. They've had a foreclosure defense attorney that was defending a foreclosure action, but not giving them any options how to actually settle that foreclosure and get out of this mess that they're in. And when we're trying to talk about solutions, do you want to do a loan modification? Can we qualify you? What about a short sale? What would be the timing on that? And explaining to them, if they qualify, how we work those numbers, and if they can't qualify, what the reason is that we're not able to qualify them for a loan modification.
And you also forgot to mention those poor individuals that attend those NACA conferences and have to sit there for 8 hours, 12 hours at a time.
Right.
Yeah. It's a matter of educating, explaining, offering the options so that people can clearly understand how the system works and whether or not they can use that system to reach their goals.
Now, once you retained us, describe how the process felt to you as compared to when you were trying to do it on your own.
I don't know how to describe it. It's just simple. simple, yet it reinforced how dysfunctional these banks are, George. I was submitting all of the same information that I was submitting to them on my own. I just had you guys, and you guys know the path to take, know the routes to take, know what to submit, when, so on and so forth.
Well, and that's a great point that BJ makes there. I mean, we actually have the systems in place. We have a whole team of people, and they all have their specific function and responsibility. And, we calendar how many times we need to contact the lender, on this particular week, or how often do we have to call in order to get the necessary results for that particular file.
Well, I understand people's frustration with submitting loan modifications on their own. And I'm frustrated. I would like it if I never had to submit another loan modification application for someone, that it was possible for people to do it on their own and have the kind of success that we get. And why shouldn't they be able to do that? What's the difference between BJ submitting a loan modification on his own and us submitting it? But he submitted two and he wasn't successful, yet we submit it and we get great results for him. Why? What's the difference? I don't know. We have a couple of forms. Morris DuPont created forms that we submit as part of the loan modification application, especially our financial worksheet, that I think makes it easier for lenders to review the application. It's sort of a summary of the entire financial picture that we're submitting. Remember, a loan modification application is typically 75 to 120 pages long.
Yeah, when we submit a package to the lender, we're not just submitting the paperwork. We actually look at it as a proposal. And like you mentioned, we have our own financial worksheet. We conduct our own financial analysis. And when we submit the documents to the lender, we're telling them what we think this client qualifies for and why. And we're submitting the supporting evidence to prove our position or to support our position.
Well, that answers your question, Jay. That's the difference right there.
But it's frustrating. It shouldn't have to be that way. I want everyone who can qualify for a loan modification to get one, because the results can be phenomenal.
Sure.
Now,
it's not frustrating when you engage you guys, though. I mean, it really wasn't. It was frustrating for 2 years, but not from the March of earlier this year till their last year.
And how was your communication with the firm itself, members of the firm, with George, with myself, with your loan mod consultant?
Jennifer Barrow, absolutely fantastic. Fantastic. And I will say, Shay, you'll probably jump through the phone and come beat me up for this, but, I mean, you were willing, when we got the good news in January that we were placed into a temporary loan modification, you called me up and said, look, this is a big nut, and if this is going to put you in a financial hardship, we will amend or, alter or change your retainer fee a little bit and amend it a little bit to make sure that this is affordable, which I thought spoke volumes about you and your firm, for Pete's sake.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
The problem, folks, is that you're with a law firm. You are possibly in foreclosure. You've got legal fees involved, and then you get offered a trial modification. Well, you haven't been making a mortgage payment for the last year. Suddenly, you've got a trial modification payment to make, which is a reduced monthly mortgage payment, but you also had legal fees that you're still paying. Well, you can't possibly sometimes do both. And so when a client comes and says, I want to make the trial mod payment, but I'm still owed fees, we're like, well, come on, we'll reduce the fees. The whole goal is to get you into the trial modification. The last thing we want to do is be an impediment to you having the success that we all along have been trying to get you. So
and that trial modification is so important, because the permanent modification hinges on the successful completion of that trial modification.
Absolutely. So stay with us, BJ. We still have a couple of questions, and of course, George, you're going to give us
amazing results.
Absolutely, can't wait.
Part. You're listening to the Home Mortgage Law Show, brought to you by the law offices of Morris DuPont. 800-974-2712. That's the number for a free consultation. You could be our next Rocky segment. The law offices of Morris DuPont. 800-974-2712. 800-974-2712. More of the Home Mortgage Law Show and our Rocky results after the break. And you're listening to the Home Mortgage Law Show, brought to you by the law offices of Morris DuPont. Attorneys Will Morris, Shay DuPont, and George Fajardo, Director of Loss Mitigation. I should say the director of our Rocky segment.
That's right.
And right after we hear the results, we're going to open up the phone lines, and it's toll free to call the show, 866-610-NEWS, 866-610-6397.
And we've been talking with BJ, a client of the firm. And before the break, we were talking about, your experience with the firm as compared to when you were trying to do this on your own for almost 2 years. And so is there anything else you want to share with the listeners before we get into the results?
No, just again, it was just an absolute a pleasure. I mean, just everyone I encountered. Will even had to, make the trek up here to the Tampa Bay area to represent me in court, and had to turn around and go back because the judge screwed that up. Everything was fantastic. And again, I just can't reiterate to your audience enough. Go see these folks. It's a free consultation, and it's really and time well spent, an hour well spent.
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks.
so much, BJ. Now, George, this is a Freddie Mac loan, right?
Yes, it is. And for those who have been listening to the show, know that with Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, we're not very big fans of their current policies, but nonetheless, we were able to achieve a great result in this particular case.
So bring it on, George.
let's
Come
hear it.
on,
So
bring it on.
So without further ado, I mean, let's talk about some of the numbers before the
Okay.
modification, and then we'll get into the actual results. But before the modification, BJ, your payment was around $2,300 a month, and that that was the principal and interest, plus your escrow of about another $600. So overall, you were paying around $2,950 a month. That was your original payment, correct?
Yep, close. Yep.
What's the interest rate
And we're
on
at an
that?
interest rate of 6.5%.
Okay, pretty
Okay.
typical from a mortgage back in 2006, 2005.
Right. And with the arrears and past dues, the principal balance had ballooned to over $146,000.
146?
$446,000.
I'm sorry. $446,000.
Correct.
What's the current market value of the property?
Okay. The current market value of the property is somewhere around $330,000.
Okay.
Okay. Now, as a result of the loan modification,
Okay.
the payment has actually been reduced from $2,950 to $2,013.
Wow.
Ooh,
Wow.
very
So-
nice.
Wow, very nice.
So we're talking about a $937 a month payment reduction.
That's a big number.
Very nice. Very
That's a
nice,
big number.
BJ. Very nice. Now, 2,000 I could handle.
Yeah, 30% reduction.
Nice.
Very sweet.
Okay, and the way we were able to achieve that was by getting the lender to reduce the interest rate from 6.5% to a 4% fixed.
Mm-hmm. Not bad.
Okay, and they reset the loan, and they deferred over $114,000 of the principal balance, so that the interest-bearing principal balance was actually the equivalent of the market value of the property. So
Nice.
right around $332,000.
That's
Very
not a bad
nice. Now,
deal.
the reason we couldn't get a 2% on a loan modification like this was because it is a Freddie Mac loan, right, George? So Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae are not really doing too many 2% modifications. Instead, they're keeping it somewhere between 3.5 and 4%.
Correct. And the reason being is that they run it through their cascade, as they call it. And so that means that they run it through their internal programs first before they attempt to run it through HAMP.
Okay.
And in those particular cases, if the borrower qualifies for one of their in-house programs, then there's no need for them to take it to the next step and try to run it for HAMP. So in this particular case, what we're looking at is a Freddie Mac standard loan modification.
And I guess the reason why we weren't able to get a principal reduction is because it's a Freddie Mac loan.
Correct.
All right. So we
Can't
get
get one.
we got the next best thing, which is a deferment.
Yeah, I like this deferment,
Sure.
BJ. So we've got $114,000 basically not as part of the interest-bearing part of your
Absolutely.
mortgage.
Doesn't surprise me with dealing with you folks for the past year.
You're
Thank
so
you.
sweet. That's very
Thank you.
kind of you. You know, I hate to even verbalize this, but let me tell you what in my wildest dreams I believe could possibly happen. If we get a new director of the Federal Housing Finance Authority, which oversees Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and they allow for principal reductions, I would be hopeful that all these deferments
Would automatically turn into the reduction. You listen. That's a
that
good
they
thought.
would be forgiven.
Right.
All of these deferments that people get on loan modifications with Fannie and Freddie, where the lender says, okay, we're going to defer this amount of your principal.
Right.
We're going to set it aside non-interest bearing.
Well, it makes sense because it's the same analysis, right? It's the same analysis to get into as far as determining whether or not to give a principal reduction, right?
Yep.
So it makes sense. Listen, let's keep our fingers crossed. Maybe you can be one of those persons who get that deferred amount forgiven in the future sometime.
That would be awesome.
Would be
And
Terrific.
Shay, real quick, before one last thing, just to kind of the cherry on top of the sundae is to how far dysfunctional Bank of America is. When they sent me the loan mod earlier this week, it arrived April 29th.
Yep.
The letter was titled March 27th, and I had till April 1st to make the. I mean, doesn't that?
You could always go back in time and get it done.
Yeah.
That's not unheard of. We see that more often than we'd like. And we also see people getting trial modification offers and permanent loan modification offers where they have 2 days to make a decision and return the paperwork. And
Right.
they'll be calling and saying, how am I supposed to make a decision in 2 days? And we say, we will look at the paperwork. We'll do the analysis for you. We will show you what that paperwork really means to you. Does it make for a good loan modification offer, or doesn't it make for a good loan modification offer? So that on your own, maybe 2 days wouldn't be enough, but when you've got the law firm of Morris DuPont behind you, we do the analysis for you, and we show you how that modification would be beneficial, or maybe how other options might make sense for you going forward, whether that is a short sale, continuing defendant foreclosure action, seeing if some, like I know Fannie's coming out with a streamlined loan mod program in June. For some of our clients, we're saying let's wait until after Streamline comes out. We might be able to get you a better offer during that time. But for a Freddie Mac offer, this is fantastic. And let's compare it against HARP, the Home Affordable Refinance Program, which a lot of people out there that have negative equity are being solicited by their lender to get a refinance of their property so that they can see a monthly mortgage payment lowered. Compare that to what you can achieve here. You can't get a deferment of any principal in a HARP refinance. And here, BJ was able to get a deferment of principal of over $114,000 so that the interest-bearing note was at the current market value of the property.
Well, not only that, through a HARP refinance, you can actually expect your principal balance to increase because you have to tack on
The
closing costs.
right, sure.
And you have to qualify,
Mhm.
and that includes your credit score. Certainly not something we were using here on yours, BJ. It's just a matter of income and being able to present that income information properly to the lender so that they can review it for the best possible loan modification program available.
And it's not likely that you would get a better interest rate than 4% through a HARP
No.
refinance
No.
either.
So going forward, making a mortgage payment, how's it feel?
Fantastic.
I'm so glad for you.
Congratulations to you there.
Thank you, Will.
So let's kind of get further into the numbers. So you see now, we talked about $937 a month savings. That equates to over $11,000 a year, which turns into a total savings of over $300,000
Wow.
for the life of the loan.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Very nice.
Very, very happy for you, BJ. Thanks so much for taking time out of your Saturday to be on the show with us. We really appreciate it. And dreams come true for everybody.
There you
You've
go.
been a Rocky.
I wonder how many people are out there wondering if it could happen to them, if they can find the same results.
Well, Natalie, I hope we find out. Come on, give us a call. Call the radio station. Tell us what your situation is, or call the law firm of Morris DuPont at 800-974-2712, and maybe you too will see results like BJ. BJ, thanks again for taking time out of your Saturday to share with us.
And you're listening to the Home Mortgage Law Show, brought to you by the law offices of Morris DuPont. 1-800-974-2712. That is free consultation at the law offices of Morris DuPont. If you can hear the show, guaranteed there is an office near you, whether it's in the South Florida area or in the Tampa area. Just pick up the phone. The number's the same. It's toll free. 800-974-2712. Attorneys Will Morris, Shay DuPont, George Fajardo, Director of Loss Mitigation, and the entire staff of the law offices of Morris DuPont are standing by. 1-800-974-2712. Toll free, free consultation, the law offices of Morris DuPont. More of the Home Mortgage Law Show, taking calls right after this. You're listening to the Home Mortgage Law Show, brought to you by the law offices of Morris DuPont. Attorneys Will Morris and Shay DuPont, joined today by George Fajardo, Director of Loss Mitigation. Our phone lines are open. We are taking calls. It is toll-free. Call the show. Talk to the experts. If you have any questions, doubts, concerns, you want to tell us your story, see how we could have helped, it's 866-610-NEWS, 866-610-6397. 866-610-6397. AT&T Wireless customers, star 610.
George, congratulations to the Loan Modification Department, which you oversee as part of your job as Director of Loss Mitigation at Morris DuPont. I mean, BJ came in, had tried to get a loan modification twice on his own. We got him a great loan modification. I know that was the Loan Modification Department at Morris DuPont that did that. Who was the consultant on that? Do you remember?
Yes, it was Christina.
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 Gotta love it. I mean, so detail oriented, putting together a loan modification application. Folks, if you've tried it once, you drown in paperwork, the details that go into it, especially for people who have their own business, because you have to be able to show proof of your monthly income. And for people that own their own business, they actually have to submit to the lender profit and loss statements on a monthly basis. They have to submit the business bank account for the business. They have to sometimes submit the business tax returns. So it gets really complicated. And a lot of people get scared thinking, wait a minute, I'm providing all this financial information to my lender. Am I doing the right thing? I mean, I'm in foreclosure. It might be that if I'm not successful, the lender's going to foreclose on my property. They're going to be able to come back.
You give them a roadmap,
me.
right? Give them a roadmap where all my assets are.
Right, exactly. So it's scary for people to be submitting this. This is really rather intimate information that you don't normally share with other people.
Right.
Yet your lender is requesting your bank statements, your pay stubs, all the information about your business, any investment properties that you own, leases. These are a lot of documents that you really are not comfortable providing to anybody.
Yeah, and a perfect example of that is 401ks and IRAs, where the lender will sometimes ask us for these types of protected assets, and we'll dispute those requests, and we'll question why they're asking for them if they can't make any claim to those funds, and we'll try to protect our clients in that manner.
Right. There's a lot of documents, a lot of asset information that the lender sometimes asks for, which we know because we know the guidelines for these different loan modification programs, that the lender does not have a right to receive that information, because a loan modification, remember folks, is based on your monthly income. It's not based on, do you have, $200,000 sitting in an IRA? And these profit and loss statements, I've got to tell you, a lot of people actually, they have very small businesses. They have their accountant do a principal and loss statement once a year that they really don't even see. They just use it as part of their tax preparation. I know we've been using Regal Tax Advisory Group to help a lot of our clients put together those monthly profit and loss statements, quarterly profit and loss statements that the lender requires to any business owner that doesn't receive pay stubs.
Or in cases where the lender's only given us 48 to 72 hours in which to submit the paperwork, and their accountant is busy and they can't get to it for another week or two, and we'll direct them to Regal, and Regal will review all the paperwork and process and prepare the profit and loss
in 24 hours.
Very, very timely manner.
Natalie, can we put up Regal Tax Advisory Group's information on our Facebook page?
Absolutely.
So that anyone who, if you haven't paid your taxes yet this year, folks, if you've filed an extension, if you have IRS issues, if the IRS is auditing you, if the IRS has a lien or claiming that you have past due taxes, go to the folks at Regal Tax Advisory Group. They've helped so many of our clients at Morris DuPont. They do Morris DuPont's taxes for us. Absolutely. I know, they've helped us quite a bit.
No kidding.
So Regal Tax Advisory Group, we highly recommend them. Remember Morris DuPont's Facebook page. That's the Home Mortgage Law Show, sponsored by Morris DuPont. That's the full name of our Facebook page. Join it. Stay in touch with us. Ask your questions through the Facebook page. You can send us private messages through the Facebook page, and we'll be happy to answer your questions for you. That's the Home Mortgage Law Show, sponsored by Morris DuPont. And you can go directly to our website, and that is homemortgagelaw.com. We've got a frequently asked questions tab on there, answering your questions about loan modifications, about short sales, about deed-in-lieu, how these different programs work. What is a rolling 60 days past due, you might ask? We talk about it on the show quite a bit. What is a rolling 60 days past due? Well, we answer that question and many more like that on our webpage under the Frequently Asked Questions tab. That's homemortgagelaw.com. Go to the website. You can also contact us through there. You can schedule your appointment, and we try to provide as much information to you free of charge so that you can use that information to make decisions about what you're going to do about that property that has negative equity, what to do when someone in the household has lost a job, overtime has been cut, the monthly mortgage payment is unaffordable. There's different ways that we can offer you solutions, offer you options going forward so that you can either make a proper exit out of that property with a deficiency waiver of any amount between what you owe and what the value of the property is today, or get a loan modification. You heard the Rocky. BJ had an unaffordable mortgage payment. He'd lost his job in 2008, and he started a new business, but he couldn't afford the mortgage payment and get that new business going. So he had to default. He had a foreclosure action filed against him. 2 years later, he came to the law firm of Morris DuPont. He had tried to get a loan modification. Twice he applied. Twice he was denied. Morris DuPont got him that loan modification.
Phenomenal one, too.
Over a 30% reduction in his monthly mortgage payment, where he was previously paying $2,950 as a mortgage payment. We've gotten it down to $2,013.
Phenomenal.
Incredible results. We want to get them for you too. Call the law firm of Morris DuPont at 800-974-2712. They say it's raining men, but it's raining checks, Will.
I see that.
It's raining checks.
Everybody's getting one.
It's incredible. Remember, the independent foreclosure review was canceled, and now the checks to borrowers who were foreclosed on between 2009 and 2010,
they're just coming in. Whether or not you ask for it, it's coming.
Millions and millions of checks are going out. Over $1.1 billion in checks have been cashed by mortgage borrowers who have had their property foreclosed on, were in the foreclosure process, and they received a check. Okay, typical check amount is $300, but hey, in this day and age, $300 can make a big difference. The biggest check I heard of, I think, was $6,000 from not from a client, but from the client's brother in Arizona received the check for $6,000. That was the biggest one I've heard of so far. George, what have you heard?
In our client base, I think 3,000 is the highest that we've seen.
3,000? Because I remember we had gotten one for one of the clients.
For 1,000?
Yeah, for 1,000.
Right.
The first one was for 1,000, but I know you see them first. So
far
we've
for
got
3,000 this week.
Right.
But we still don't know
what the
criteria is to determine what
like
amount each borrower is due to receive.
George, I have explained it to you already. It's a dartboard. They're blindfold, and they throw the darts at the dartboard, and whatever section it lands in, that's what the check is issued for. Why will you not believe me?
Well, I'm beginning to believe that. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just happening.
We've got some calls. Let's go to the radio.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Michael. What can we do for you today?
Well, I didn't inherit, but the house was put into mine and 4 of my brother's name, so 4 of us total before my mom passed away.
Oh,
and well, that's okay. It happened a little while ago, but the mortgage on the house is more than what the house is worth.
Mm-hmm.
We were not put on the mortgage, so we're not liable for the loan. But what we've been trying to do is just give the property back to the bank and say, okay, we don't want the property, and just go on. But I don't know how to go about doing that.
Okay, so there's 5 persons
No, 4.
on. Oh, there's 4 altogether. Okay, I thought
On
it
the
was
title.
Me and 3.
Okay, so there's 4 persons on the title to the property, and none of you are on the mortgage or the note.
No.
Okay, and none of you are interested in keeping this property?
At this point, no.
Okay, so I would strongly suggest that we find a way to short sale that property out. If you will hold on with us, we'll talk about it during the break, and when we come back, we'll have an answer for you.
Okay.
You're listening to the Home Mortgage Law Show, brought to you by the law offices of Morris DuPont. 800-974-2712. Free consultation, 1 phone call away, and here's the number, 1-800 866-974-2712. We're going to wrap things up on the Home Mortgage Law Show right after this break. You're listening to the Home Mortgage Law Show, brought to you by the law offices of Morris DuPont. We're in the home stretch with attorneys Will Morris and Shay DuPont, joined by George Fajardo, Director of Loss Mitigation, and on the phones, which is 866-610-6397, toll free, 866-610-NEWS, AT&T Wireless Customer Star 610. We have Michael.
And we have Michael on the phone, who has 3 other family members that are on title to a property with him. But that's all you've got is title to the property. It has a mortgage on it. The mortgage holder, unfortunately, your mother, is deceased. So what we think is the best result for you would be to be doing this. We want to see the title cleaned up, and we'd like to see quick claim deeds on the property so that there is just one title holder. It's going to make this process that much easier, Michael. So we'd like to see one of the family members say, okay, I'm going to take the lead on this. I will agree to be the family representative on this loss mitigation. Everyone else quit claims their title interest in the property back to that one person. So we've only got one person on title. At the same time, we're going to list the property at current market value, show the property. We've got to be able to show that the property has been listed at current market value on the MLS for a minimum of 90 days.
And I think an important point to make is that because there's negative equity in the property, those individuals who give up title to the one family member that takes the lead on this, they're not really giving up anything.
No.
Because
otherwise
it's
they probably
negative
wouldn't
equity.
agree. They wouldn't agree to
They're
it.
freeing themselves of a responsibility, actually.
Yeah. So how are you following me so far, Michael?
I am, yes.
Okay. So the reason that we've got to show the lender that we've listed the property at current market value for a minimum of 90 days is if you want to do a deed in lieu, meaning deed the property back over to the lender, you've got to be able to prove that you had it listed on the MLS for a minimum of 90 days at current market value. Now, really, my hope is that there is an offer made on the property in that 90 days, and we do a short sale of the property because, remember, we don't have to get a deficiency waiver. There's no one for the lender to go after for that deficiency amount because there is no one who is legally responsible for that mortgage and note since your mother passed away.
And in most cases, the lender would rather approve a short sale than a deed in lieu where they're now responsible for the property. They'd rather have you do all the legwork and sell the property for them.
Yeah, and my 2 questions were, I mean, if there is a deficiency, are we liable for that amount of money?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and 2, can they 1099 us and make us responsible for the taxes?
Absolutely not. Remember, and this is very important for the listeners, there's 3 really different legal issues that you have to look at with a property. You have to look at the note, and that is the IOU. Someone went to a lender and said, I want to borrow $300,000. When you borrow that money, you are going to sign a note evidencing your borrowing of that money, the IOU. Secondly, there is a mortgage that you have to sign. A mortgage is evidence of the security interest on the property so that if you default on the note, the lender will have the right to go against that asset, the house, to get some of their money back,
It's
to
the
recoup
collateral.
some of their money.
It's actually, the mortgage is actually a lien on the property.
Yeah.
Right.
Secured lien on the property.
Right.
So that's the mortgage. Then you have the title or deed to the property, and that is evidencing the ownership of the property. So you and your brothers have only the title to the property, the ownership interest in the property. You have no liability on the mortgage, and you have no liability on the note, the IOU. You never agreed to borrow that
Right.
money from the
You
bank.
didn't sign any note in favor of the bank.
And the bank can't go after someone who's not the note holder.
Absolutely.
So you guys are free and clear on the note and the deficiency amount and the tax consequence on that note, i.e. the mortgage. You simply have the ownership interest, and since the note holder has passed away, there's no one liable for the deficiency amount.
What if they put us into foreclosure?
Same response. Understand this: a foreclosure lawsuit is only against the property. It's a lawsuit to extinguish the rights of anyone, yourselves who are entitled, for example, that they may have in the property. It has nothing to do with personal responsibility, personal liability. All the bank is trying to do is clear up the title so that they can then transfer that title free and clear to a third party. That's what a foreclosure lawsuit seeks to do.
And Will, I also think that's a place where there's a lot of confusion out there about a foreclosure lawsuit, because when you get served with a foreclosure lawsuit,
ordinarily you think I have personal responsibility.
Well, because there's so many people listed as defendants. Michael, you and your brothers, if there was a foreclosure lawsuit,
They'll be listed.
You would be listed as defendants because you have a financial interest in the property due to the fact that you own it.
Right. And all the bank would be trying to do is to extinguish your interest in the property. That's all the foreclosure does.
Well, if we've already contacted the bank and already told them we want to give it back to them, we would sign it back over to them. But what they wanted to do is 1099 us for the difference or the tax difference.
Well, they're not looking to 1099 you, because only the person whose debt is being forgiven, i.e. the person who signed the note, is liable under a 1099.
Right. No, they sent us the information, said all four of us need to sign for a 1099.
I'd be interested in looking at that paperwork, Michael, because I think the lender is confused
I believe so.
as to what your interest in the property is, but I'm happy to look at that paperwork for you. So you can call me at the office, on Monday and just like send it to me as an email attachment. And I'm happy to look at that paperwork for you, because based on the facts as you've presented them to us, you don't have any liability on that note or mortgage. But if there's something in there that I need to review that might be causing this, I'm happy to look at it. But the way you've presented it to us, you've got no liability. You would absolutely not receive a 1099. You have no liability. They're not waiving any debt of yours.
Right.
Because you weren't obligated on that debt. So how can they waive any debt, which would be a 1099 is for cancellation of debt. You don't have any debt on that property. It has negative equity. You're not on the note. It's not an issue. But really, I'm happy to look at it for you.
Okay. What's your number? Are you going to give it to me off air?
No, I'll give it to you right now. It's 800 974 2712. And you don't have to schedule a consultation. You just say, I talked to Shay on the air on Saturday, and she asked me to give her a call, and I'm happy to speak to you, really.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks so much for calling. Thanks for listening to the show. Sorry about your mother's passing. But look, you guys can stay in possession of that property. You can rent that property. You can live in that property until a foreclosure action is all the way to a sale date. So, if no foreclosure is going on right now, you can stay in possession of that property for a couple more years if somebody wants to rent it out. But again, let's clean up that title. Let's get 4 people off the title and narrow it down to 1. Gonna make it a lot less complicated going forward.
Okay.
All right.
I'll give you a call.
All right, great.
Bye.
Yeah, he just had like a law school exam there. He had a lot of issues.
But
they're all very, very simple.
And they're all interesting to me.
Yeah. But to him, it's a crazy situation. He's confused about it. He's getting misinformation from the bank. And to me and you and George, it's very simple.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, you can't always take the information that you're getting from the representative of the bank at face value, because they may not know what they're talking about either.
Right, and besides, they don't have your best interest at heart. They don't care about his interest, really.
Come on, let's admit it. Sometimes the banks just out and out lie.
There's
how many times have we had someone come in and they're in tears because a bank representative told them that they're in foreclosure?
And we're coming to get the house tomorrow. And tomorrow we're coming to get the house. I've heard that. We've just filed a foreclosure lawsuit against you. We're coming for the house tomorrow. And people actually believe that and believe they have to get out the house tomorrow.
And
not so.
We go and look on the docket. We go look at the clerk of court.
Right.
We have ways of accessing how lawyers can to these dockets in the counties and see that, gee, I'm sorry, but no foreclosure action has even been filed against your property. You're only 2 months past due. The lender is saying things that are absolutely wrong. They're trying to scare you into making a payment.
Absolutely.
You have options available to you. Folks, that's the most important thing. If you are having trouble making your monthly mortgage payment, if you are drowning in debt, if you are looking for some assistance, looking for the right answers, we can help. Call the law firm of Morris DuPont.
And that number is 800-974 2712. 1-800-974-2712. A free consultation at the law offices of Morris DuPont. 800-974-2712. The Home Mortgage Law Show. We'll see you next Saturday.